Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. It is the Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026 episode of the Marco Jure Show. Thank you for tuning in to hear today's groundbreaking news right here in America and across the board, where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Let's begin the best of radio, informative, uncensored, unapologetic, and ready to go, as always. Let's jump right into it today. The Trump administration has now the dubious honor, folks, as the administration that, when they're out of tricks to distract you with, we go to war. And when you go looking for wars, you easily find more wars. It's not too difficult. Whether it be in Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, as Bernie Sanders would tell us, Greenland, or really anywhere else we feel we can push these countries around. Notice we never go to war, though, with Russia, China, Pakistan, India, North Korea. They all seem to have something in common, don't they? I think they do. Oh, yeah, they all have nuclear weapons. That's the number one deterrent. This Donroe doctrine that we find ourselves in right now of, if you're a little country and small and we don't like what you're doing, or if we want to change your economic policy and you're not buying what we're selling, we'll just crush you. Militarily, economically, doesn't matter. This is the policy now coming out of the White House. Again, it's illegal. It has really no constitutionality to it, despite those that continue to say that there is something here for this war that we see ourselves in. I don't see it. I really don't see how this is justified in any way at all. By the way, we still have no idea what the end goal of this war even is. We still haven't gotten a solid answer on this. Well, we got into the war. We'll talk about that momentarily. But what does success look for in this war? What does it look like? What's the common goal we're working towards? How do we know that our military has achieved this goal, too, by the way? And what takes place after that? We're hearing remnants of a nuclear weapons program, a ballistic missile program, funding proxies, regime change. What are we there for? Because if we're there for the nuclear weapons, have we hit the nuclear weapons sites? Have we destroyed them again? We haven't been told this. In fact, we heard very little about us hitting these sites, haven't we? But what does regime change even look like? Does it just mean a U.S.-friendly government? We're no longer ruling out the possibility of boots on the ground at this point? Have you heard about that now? Yeah, things are going so well with these bombings that we're now considering boots on the ground. Let me just inform everybody. Iran has a military of about 960,000 troops in a country the size of Western Europe. And President Trump is now saying that we have virtually unlimited supplies of weapons to fight a forever war. No, we don't. That's a bunch of nonsense. Of course we don't. In fact, a lot of our stockpiles are gone because we've given so much to Ukraine, Israel, other countries over the years. This is where we find ourselves right now. The exact thing he vowed he would not do, which was take us into these forever wars, these endless wars, these nonsensical wars, we now find ourselves in this. It doesn't make any sense, folks. It really doesn't. And I can't understand, really, to this day, why we're doing this. What is the purpose of this? Now, sadly for us, he's now talking about 4 weeks or so more of this. That's what he's estimating. It probably will go longer than that, though. I mean, how many times have we heard we'll be in and out and we're in there for 20 years? But sadly for us, and really the world right now, this is breaking out into a greater regional war right now. And we're just over 3 days into this. We're on day 4 right now. And Iran is showing us that we may have bitten off more than we could chew for the time being. We're now seeing U.S. embassies in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait shutting down as well. And speaking of down, our economy is now starting to shift as a result of this unnecessary war we find ourselves in. CNBC categorizes the massive drop in the stock market right now, and as you can imagine, it's now starting to reflect what we're seeing. Take a look at this. The Dow Jones today, losing 828 points, 1.7% of its stock. The 30 stock index was down 1,277.93 points at its low of the session. My goodness. It's no different than the S&P 500. Look at that, slipping 1.6%. NASDAQ down some 1.7%. At their lows of the day, the S&P 500 had lost 2.5% and NASDAQ was down 2.7%. Everything is starting to shift. This is why each week I go over this with you, so we understand what's taking place. What you're seeing now is people panicking. Investors are panicking. They're trying to get out while they're ahead. That's what we're seeing right now. And everything in these, for example, the S&P 500 sectors, everything was in the red on Tuesday. Everything but energy. And we'll go over that momentarily. But you're looking at materials, industrials, we have consumer discretionary sectors now that we're seeing very big losses on fears that higher oil prices and borrowing costs could weigh in on the U.S. economy. Well, of course it will. And it is. We're looking at tech stocks. We're looking at things like NVIDIA that led the Monday intraday comeback. We're lower on Tuesday, though. Everything is starting to respond to what we're seeing right now. And this is why we're seeing the stock market beginning to come down. Not good, folks. This is not a good move. This was not a smart move by any stretch of the imagination. Now, as of today, noontime, oil prices are continuing to rise globally, as one could expect. We have the Strait of Hormuz shut down. We're seeing oil refineries, oil fields being hit by Iran, as they said they would. But look at this. Brent crude now, trading at $83.40 per barrel, up 7.1% from yesterday's close. You got the WTI now trading at $76.54 per barrel, up 7.45% from yesterday's close. Murbain crude now is trading at $81.88 per barrel inside the UAE. That's done, by the way. They're not getting out of the Persian Gulf. And we have the Urals crude out of Russia, trading at $58.94 per barrel. That's largely because of the supply chain disruption and economy that Russia is facing right now. This will now cause not only the price at the pump to soar for you folks, and God bless you if you're commuting a long way to work, but also if you are looking at your everyday goods, it's going to cost more to ship it. Their prices go up, your prices go up. It's just economics 101. And now you slap on the 15% tariff that Trump boasted about last week at the State of the Union, just a week ago. Your imported goods now coming to America have a 15% tax on them now, folks. And guess who pays that tax? You're going to pay that tax. So is this America first or is this America last? Someone remind me, because I'm struggling to figure this out right now. President Trump believing that killing the Ayatollah Khamenei would achieve this instant fall of Iran. But as we saw yesterday, the streets of Tehran were full of Iranians lamenting and both honoring the life of the now deceased Ayatollah. And the toilet stream media will show you people in Los Angeles dancing to create this narrative that everybody wants this. Most of these schmucks can't even find Iran on a map. Just telling you the truth. Well, folks, guess what? I saw footage of millions of Iranians inside Iran that do not share that view. And I know this because their government is still standing. They thought that taking down Khamenei would simply create this mass, I guess I would call it, confusion, disruption, chaos in the streets. They would, attack government buildings, take these people out, kill them, you name it, claim victory over the government is down, the regime is over. But that didn't happen. That's the problem. That did not happen. And this notion from President Trump that's circulating that the military is collapsing, I haven't seen this. Now, we've heard that Israel has struck the presidential compound, and they want to make a deal now. They want immunity. But the time for talk now is over, Trump says. So which is it? If you destroy the nuclear weapons program again, which you're claiming has happened, And that was the big reason for this. We're so fearful that they're going to get a nuclear weapon. Then why are we still bombing them? Why are we not coming to the table now and saying, look, your nuclear program's done. It's null and void. We've done this for a second time now. It's obliterated. Why are we coming through and saying, let's talk and finish this now? Let's get this in writing. Why aren't we doing that? If that's the ultimate goal, was the nuclear weapons program. But we can't get a straight answer on any of this. Is it the protesters? Is it the nuclear weapons program? Is it because they have ballistic missiles? Nobody can answer any of these questions, and that's the big problem about all this. They don't want to talk, by the way. They just want to survive. They want to stave off these attacks, and it's only just begun, but they are holding up, Iran. That's what we're seeing right now. Iran has hit every single U.S. military base and air base inside the region, which are no longer even operating, by the way. That's going to cost us about $100 billion to repair. But the one standout from yesterday, I've got to tell you this. The one standout was Marco Rubio. Now, whether he was Secretary of State Marco Rubio or National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, the blunder's on him right now when he was speaking to the press. And he went on to say the quiet part out loud yesterday. And it sheds light onto why America got into this war. Let's take a listen.
There absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded. If we waited for them to hit us first after they were attacked, and by someone else, Israel attacked them, they hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us, we would suffer more casualties and more deaths. We went proactively in a defensive way to prevent them from inflicting higher damage. Had we not done so, there would have been hearings on Capitol Hill about how we knew that this was going to happen and we didn't act preemptively to prevent more casualties and more loss of life.
Hold on a second. Israel attacks by themselves? You mean to say our greatest ally in the entire world didn't consult with the leader of the free world, Donald Trump? Knowing full well what Iran's intentions were if they were attacked by either the U.S. or Israel? They made it very clear, folks. I've been telling you on the show for weeks now. They will hit every single U.S. and Israeli military base in the region, along with every single oil refinery, oil, and gas field alike. They're hitting embassies right now, and they're making good on these promises too, because we're seeing it take place. I just told you, the Kuwaiti, the Saudi Arabian embassies of the United States are closed. They're done. The Saudi Arabian Aramco facility was hit, which is one of the biggest and largest single facilities for refining oil inside the world, alone producing some 550,000 barrels of oil per day. That's done. That's not happening right now. Yeah, good luck getting that $1 trillion investment from Saudi Arabia now, President Trump. By the way, the Saudis are coming out saying that the United States left them out to dry. I'm sure that's going to go over very well in the future. This is no good, folks. Everything we're seeing now is just simply unplanned. Nothing there is indicating to us that we're acting in good faith on this, because there was no plan for this. They were not expecting this. And that's the biggest problem about all of it. So we can sit here and say, well, there was a plan, but there really wasn't a plan. And it goes to show, when you look at what's taking place, everything is up in the air right now. But the question now is, did Israel defy President Trump's wishes not to invade, or did President Trump tell them, if they go in, we're right behind you? Only those two scenarios could be the case. So which is it? Israel attacks them, which we know would take us into this war. Therefore, we entered the war with them. And like clockwork, right before another set of negotiations, Israel sends in 6 missiles to the Ayatollah's compound, killing him. Killing him, his granddaughter, his daughter, son-in-law, one of his daughter-in-laws, and his wife died from injuries just yesterday that she sustained from this bombing. Either way, Rubio clearly stated, Israel went in and we followed them because we thought they might attack us. That's not an imminent threat, folks. That's us going to war, because we're right at the hip with Israel in all of this. So in other words, Israel knew how to get us into this war. That's what it was. And by the way, let me just point this out to everybody listening. If we just made that decision so quickly and we knew that we just had to get in this war because we had to get in this war, there's no sign of imminent threat. Now, they're selling it to you as that, though. I understand what they're doing. They're saying, well, we were going to be attacked after our ally, whose military is funded 100% by the United States taxpayer. They dropped bombs, and now we knew we had to get into this war. That's the stupidity of all this. But that's not an imminent threat. That's us attacking them. So naturally, they're going to respond because we knew this. We attacked them first. That's what Rubio admitted. Because, again, like I said to you before, their entire military is funded by us. And, of course, we continue to drop bombs with Israel, assassinating the Ayatollah. And then President Trump goes on and makes the following statement on Saturday morning. Let's listen to clip 2.
The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran.
Now, he doesn't say we thought we'd be attacked right away, so we acted out of my discretion because we don't want our embassies or military bases to be harmed in any such way. He doesn't say that, did he? He says we did this for the future. Well, whose future? Not ours. Iran's ballistic missiles certainly can't reach the United States right now. Now, of course, they can reach our U.S. bases in the Middle East. But then he talks about how they can't get nuclear weapons using that same shtick. Let's think about that. Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons, but someday they might have them. Which leads me to believe that this was, again, not an imminent threat to send vessels into the region. What was the purpose of that? Everything was setting up, folks, behind the scenes, throughout all these negotiations, and this happened the last time, too. We said we were in talks with them. We were supposed to meet with them yesterday. That was the third day round of talks. Yet on Saturday morning, early Saturday morning, we are bombing them. Same plan. So why would our ships already be in that region if you have no intention of going to war with them? None of this adds up. Not once does he say we believed our military bases or personnel would be attacked, so we had to respond quickly. We issued the War Powers Act to protect them in self-defense. None of that was there. None of that. This entire time he's been saying they better make a deal or something bad might happen. Then he sends a fleet to surround Iran. The Arabian Sea, the Mediterranean, parts of the Persian Gulf. Iran gets hit, so they responded, as they said they would. So Iran didn't provoke anything. The response came as the attack from Israel came into play. That's all it was. And like last June, let me just remind everybody, right after the strikes, President Trump supported the bombing of Esfahan, Natanz, Fordow, these 3 nuclear sites that were supposed to have nuclear weapons, of which there's no evidence for. But he never said we had a deal and Bibi ruined it, which exactly is what happened. But it gets worse. It gets much worse, doesn't it, folks? We then had a Secretary of War, it was really the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. He came out and, and by the way, he loves to show us how much he can bench, right? 315 pounds, 225 pounds. Look, I love it. It's great. But what the hell do I care about that? And again, I love working out and valuing my health. I appreciate that he likes that. But then he said something so asinine yesterday in clip 3, it'll make your head shake. It's unbelievable. Let's take a listen to clip 3 and try to keep our breakfast down.
Iran was building powerful missiles and drones to create a conventional shield for their nuclear blackmail ambitions. Let me say, Iran had a conventional gun to our head as they tried to lie their way to a nuclear bomb. It almost worked under Obama and his terrible deal, but not under this president.
I'm sorry, what does a strong ballistic missile program for deterrence mean? That they are building a nuclear weapon? A conventional shield, as he calls it, so they can build nuclear weapons? Why would they need any of that? Again, who wrote this garbage for Pete Hegseth? What staffer did this? They ought to be fired. Everything you hear from Iranian officials has always been the same. Anything from any real intel organization has always been the same. They are not building nuclear weapons. You hear this right from the Ayatollah's mouth. It's not like they're claiming they're building a weapon and we're responding to those threats. All the intel reports from various groups, like the International Atomic Energies Association, every time they've had any inspections, they've never found nuclear weapons. No sign of it. So either Iran doesn't have or is building a nuclear weapon. That's everything they're telling us. We went to meet with them last year. They were going to grant us everything. They didn't say, we're not going to do this. They didn't refuse talks. They said, we'll negotiate. The final days of the negotiation, though, Israel bombs them. And now, all of a sudden, they've decided to build a nuclear weapons program? Where's the evidence for it? There is none, because it doesn't exist. And by the way, if we didn't believe them, let me pose it to you like this. If we didn't believe that they were acting in good faith, why even set up the negotiations in the first place? That doesn't make any sense. Seems like a big waste of time to me, doesn't it, folks? And the man that they killed, the Ayatollah Khamenei, is the one person that issued government edicts, fatwas, saying that Iran is not going to build a nuclear weapon. And this is the man we killed. Yet we're so worried about nuclear technology being developed inside Iran that threatens our national security, the lives of Americans, both at home and abroad. Try to make sense of that. Where's the logic in that? Let me pose this to you, though. What if the next Ayatollah comes in and he decides he wants to build one? Does that mean endless wars with Iran? Nuclear wars? Nobody knows. Folks, this has nothing to do with nuclear weapons. This was all planned in advance by both President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, back in December when he came to Mar-a-Lago. Clear as mud. Anybody can see this. And we see the trajectory of that. There were several other attempts besides going to war. Number one, we had the negotiations, did we not? Right after that, negotiations were on the table. We met with them a couple times. We said Witkoff and Kushner, two dunces who probably couldn't negotiate their way out of a wet paper bag, but nonetheless, they went to speak with them. But then we also saw the crashing of the Iranian rial right after the new year. That didn't work. And it didn't even do anything to it affected their economy, but that didn't cause the upheaval that they thought it would. Then we tried the organization of violent riots, and the propaganda behind that didn't work, even though Mossad, CIA, and MI6 were heavily involved in that. That didn't work. That got put down. They figured out right away, hey, if we shut down this internet, they have no access to it. We confiscate the phones. We figure out who's been talking to these people. And they circumvented the Starlink that was trying to be used in the region as well and shut that down because Russia helped them out with that. So that didn't work. So what's the next alternative? Well, we can get them to submit. We give them an ultimatum. We say you're going to get rid of nuclear weapons, which even to this day, the Trump White House says they don't have nuclear weapons. Try to make sense of that. But they also used ultimatums. For example, you can't have ballistic missiles. Which, again, there's over 30 countries in the world, folks, that has ballistic missile programs for their own defense. And rightfully so. Iran was attacked last June. They were attacked right now. Unprovoked both times. What was the next step if these failed then, folks? Let's understand this. Let's say they came to the table and they said, you know what? We'll give you everything you want, President Trump. We will never build a nuclear weapon, as we've already said to you. We already agreed to. We'll never enrich uranium ever again. We'll destroy our whole ballistic missile program. We'll do that for you. And we'll let you come and check everything. And, of course, we won't fund any of these proxies. No more, never again, ever. Do you think we'd be in that war right now? No, because they control the government now. We control that government. That's what it was. But obviously they said, we're going to build, obviously, ballistic missiles. We're going to have self-defense because we understand the threat that's upon us. We're going to enrich some uranium to some extent. But this is the problem. We have to attack because we have to remove the Ayatollah. That's the next step. Regime change has to take place. That was the plan. And the hope for civil war taking place now in the streets, and then, of course, regime change on our behalf. The real goal happens on our watch. That's what we were expecting. And it didn't happen on Saturday. So we failed already. We failed in our attempt to foment regime change. That's just the way it is. The Iranian people have stood up together. But what both President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu found was that the Iranians are actually unified by the government. The attacks last June unified the Iranian people, even people that didn't even like the government at the time. It did not collapse from within, and that's why they were hoping for, and now they're really in trouble, because they thought it would be a one-and-done deal. We bomb them, the remaining government officials surrender. They're ready and prepared for this attack, though. And now it's on. Now we're in a greater regional war. We weren't expecting that. We underestimated them. And this failed to epic proportions already. We're seeing that. So where does the war go on from here, though? That's the big question. Where do we go from here? Are we just going to bomb them until we run out of our missile program and weaponry? The United States and Israel will now have to try and destroy everything inside Iran to try to break apart the country and maybe even balkanize it? I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. Because, again, it's already a multi-ethnic country, folks. Most people don't understand this. I think everybody is just under the threat of the Ayatollah, and that's it. There's already different ethnic groups inside of Iran. You got 61% of the country's Persian. Then, of course, you have a Azeri Turk population. You have Kurds, you have Baluchis, you have Jews, you have Armenians. There's many different factions inside Iran. And again, go look at Gaza. That was their template. That was the blueprint they wanted for this. Just blow everything up. Maybe that's what they'll do. Who knows? They'll start bombing everything. Try to bomb everyone out of the country. Destroy the economy that way. I don't know. I still don't believe that's going to work. The size of Western Europe, and there's still too many people that support the government. And by the way, it's not a small population. It's 93 million people, most of whom identify with the government, by the way. You have Iran's stockpiles are still indefatigable, by the way, the number of missiles they have to use, whereas our supply is actually limited, unlike what President Trump is saying. And again, thanks to sending and selling our arms around the world, mainly to Israel, and again to Ukraine. And plus, whatever we build, we need to have it traveled to up to 6,000 miles across the entire world. Iran is their own home base. And again, Iran has just to keep hitting the targets right now. And I fear soon, when they hit all those targets, they might even start hitting our ships out in the seas. That's my biggest fear right now, which obviously would put so many people at danger and risk. But Trump claims to have now sunk their entire Navy. I think he claimed 11 ships were sunk, but he sunk them in their docks. They're not like out in the sea or anything like that. And if they start doing damage to our fleet, we'll be even in bigger trouble now. Because we have no place to dock. Where are we going to go with them? Where are they going to go to refuel? Where are they going to go to get more supplies? And Iran now is beginning to even control their own airspace, even better than they had before. These are the problems. I'm not saying the United States and Israel are not hitting them. I'm not saying that at all. We are. But it's going back and forth. And Iran is showing they're pretty resilient in hitting these targets and causing lots and lots of chaos in these spots. Again, they used a few $1,000 drone to strike a $1.1 billion radar inside the UAE, I believe. I mean, when we look at it, folks, that's a pretty big difference in price. Something that cost a few $1,000s destroyed something over $1 billion. I hope this isn't going to be the lesson learned in this entire war. Now, I just want to say this to you as well. We've also confirmed now that 6 U.S. service members have now been killed and 18 now have been seriously wounded. And several others suffered some minor injuries since Operation Epic Disaster, Epic Fury has taken place. Had a little bit of a misstep there. Look at this, over $100 billion in damages so far to our U.S. military bases in the region that we will now have to rebuild once this whole debacle ends. On top of that, we're spending $245 million a day just to complete these operations. So, again, there's no way President Trump is happy about this. He's talking about now the big one. I don't even know what the hell that means. What big one? Nobody knows. What does that mean? He's going to send the big one. The big one's coming. Oh, okay. What does that mean? By the way, you don't see the same energy, the same satisfaction when he's talking either. Did you notice that? He seems very upset about this. He seems very upset about it. He's not into it like he normally is. Right? He doesn't have that same energy he had during the campaign, and it could be age, I don't know. I'm not sure about this. But I don't think he's very pleased that we're in this situation now because it didn't go the way he had planned. And the last thing President Trump wants done is to be seen as someone who lost a war. He doesn't want to be viewed in history that way. And it seems like that is a very, very good possibility as of right now. Now, of course, anything can happen in this war. Really, it can. But, again, I don't really know for how long we can continue this up for, or if we will smarten up and get the hell out of there and just cut and run. I don't know. But I don't see an end game to this, folks. And by the way, J.D. Vance has been pretty quiet about this as of late, hasn't he? After propping up this war last week. Have you noticed that? I think he and Rubio and Hegseth know it's over for them. They know it's over. Their political careers are done. They're finished. They serve no more purpose because, again, all they do is just back what President Trump wants. That's really all there is to it. And how are you going to win a war based on just being yes men? I'll be interested to hear what Raising Cane has to say about what's going on, as, again, he helped put this into play. But, again, struggling. We're still struggling in this conflict, folks, and we don't seem to have found our footing just yet. So I wanted to, obviously, share all this with you, keep you updated on this. This will go on for a while. You will see prices increase. You will see the price of gasoline go up significantly. And we'll see how the stock market comes out in this, folks. We will. By the way, gold up very big yesterday, too, folks. $5,300. It's going up, folks. I told you. It's going to hit that $6,000 mark probably by mid-year, if I had to make a guess right now, especially with the way this war is going, the way the economies are going. Yep, nothing positive to report on today's news, folks. But, again, you're going to see out of the mainstream media, you're going to see, we hit this target, we hit this way, they might be in this room. But you have to understand, they were prepared for this. They know if X, Y, and Z go down, they have A, B, and C to come in next, and another group, and another group. It's a big country. It's a big military. They're not just going to simply cave. We're seeing that take place right now. This did not have to happen. Didn't have to happen, but it did happen, and now we've got to find ourselves through this mess, hopefully with as little casualties and disaster as possible. I bring this up to you, too, because we're talking about the midterms. We know that the midterms are coming up. We know that many polls have opened up in several states, like, for example, Texas. Is this going to affect this? That's the question I have for you now. Trump is obviously very worried about this because, again, it did not go as planned. Now, advisors want President Trump now to focus on domestic affairs, not foreign policy, which I agree with. He should have been doing this from day one. But it says here that U.S. President Donald Trump pressed ahead with military strikes against Iran despite private warnings from senior aides that the escalation could be difficult to contain and carry political risks for Republicans in the November midterm elections. How many times did I say this to you? It's like they're taking out everything they've learned from this show. I said this to you already. I said this is going to be a problem for the midterms because people don't want war. Only 27% of people in the latest poll support what's going on in this war. That is a lot of people that don't like this. And this is only going to reflect in President Trump's approval rating as well. But this large-scale attack has, again, drawn near unanimous praise from foreign policy hawks only inside Washington. That's it. That's all there is to it. And we also have to look at the legality of this war, what will take place should the Republicans lose the House and Senate, which now they're forecasting the Senate may be lost, it's going to be a difficult race for them. Are they still going to get that same amount of people out to vote for them? That's the big question. Probably not. And it's all a response of his foreign policy dilemmas right now. This is all because of what he has chosen to do. And I don't really have anything more to say about this, but people are not going to be galvanized to get to the poll and vote for you when you haven't done anything for them. What do I mean by that? When you say no more foreign wars and you get us into more foreign wars, unnecessary wars, people remember that. When you don't do anything about the economy, which should have been day one, you should have been slashing those prices down, getting policy in place to help do that, like what Ronald Reagan did. Look at it. I understand it takes a while to fix an economy, but he didn't do that. In fact, at one point he said, don't worry about the economy for 2025. It'll get better in 2026. It's like, what are you talking about? Yet we're still allocating money for these foreign wars. We're worried about bombing ships in the Caribbean that have no way to get to the United States. People don't like this stuff. Most normal people don't like this stuff. There are the dunces, of course, online that love this. But it's a small majority of people. Nobody just believes in blowing up things for blowing them up. So we saw the State of the Union, very low turnout, very low approval rating. And now, of course, we see very, very low approval ratings for this war we're in right now. And the longer it goes on, the more people are going to pay attention to it. The more people are going to be upset about this. Because Trump was supposed to be the peace candidate, not the war candidate. And he made that decision very distinctly as of late. So he's got to own it. He's got to own it, folks. And there's no way around that. We got some breaking news out of Fox News today. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the Gateway Pundit. It says here that Supreme Court now blocks California's secret gender transition law for children, saying it likely violated parental rights. Well, no kidding, it did. Man, I love the court got it right, but likely? No, it does. It violates parental rights. Now, the High Court, in a 6-3 vote, allowed a lower court's ruling in favor of parents who reject the evil policy on religious grounds to stand. Well, really, it shouldn't have anything to do with religious grounds, although it does intercept that. It violates your parental rights, your right to raise your children as you see fit. Now, the Supreme Court on Monday barred California from enforcing state rules, right? This is large in part by Gavin Newsom, signing these ridiculous policies, these anti-parental bills into law. But the state rules that restrict when schools can notify parents about students who have come out as transgender and requires teachers to use children's preferred pronouns. So in other words, they go behind the parents' back. They encourage this type of behavior. They start calling the kid by a different name or different pronouns or tell them they can use this bathroom and that bathroom and things of that nature. So the 6-3 vote on the ideological lines allowed a federal judge's ruling in favor of parents who oppose this type of policy, standing on religious grounds, to go into effect. So again, good ruling, the right ruling. This shouldn't be anything, obviously, up in the air. This is reality. You as a parent have a right to raise your child as you see fit. You have a right as a parent. The school doesn't have a right to come in there and circumvent what you want. It's not their child. It's your child. But as we see this encroachment from the public schools, you see it from the state governments, like in California, that want kids to, again, carry this out behind their parents' back, is really sickening. It really is sickening. And we see many fights with, obviously, parents disagreeing on what should be done with a child's. For example, if they should get surgery or not, and the courts usually will side with the parent that wants to do it. That's the sickness behind all this. To me, this all should be shut down 100%. I don't know why we're allowing this facade of normalcy to continue to take place. But the court's ruling focused on parents' claims that their rights under the Free Exercise Clause of the Constitution's First Amendment were violated. Absolutely. The court did not grant a similar request made by teachers who object to the policy. So why would teachers have this responsibility? Teachers' job is to teach. Teachers' job is not to do these types of things. Their job is to lead the lesson, to learn, to allow the students to learn in class, not to focus on these other issues. That's an issue for some other staff, not a teacher. Your job as a teacher is not a psychologist. Your job is to lead the class. And again, we're talking about defying biology and what have you. But the courts are right. They said, we conclude that the parents who seek religious exemptions are likely to succeed on the merits of their free exercise clause claim. Absolutely. The parents who assert a free exercise claim have sincere religious beliefs about sex and gender, and they feel a religious obligation to raise their children in accordance with those beliefs. Good ruling. Now let's get the schools to do away with this. These bills that Gavin Newsom passes that allow this, allow children to come into the state of California as runaways to get these surgeries, all needs to be shut down. 100%. It's endangering children. It's a violation of parents' rights, and it needs to be stopped. But the state of California, particularly in Sacramento, believe that they circumvent those parents' rights. They're above those rights. They can make decisions instead of you and challenge your own ideology and your own belief system. Well, it seems like we're on the path to say no more. And we really should have been saying that for quite some time. So I'm really happy to see this coming out of these courts, especially the Supreme Court, to rule over this. And hopefully this sets a precedent for across the country to stop this behavior once and for all. This needs to be shut down. This has got to stop. And sadly, we still see people trying to revive this. It needs to go away once and for all. You know who's got a great idea right now? I mean, he doesn't really have a great idea, but you know who has a really, really good idea right now? It's Bernie Sanders. What is Bernie Sanders doing? Well, this is out of the Hill. So Sanders proposes a $4.4 trillion tax on billionaires. So he's taking a playbook out of Zoran Mamdani, remember? Mamdani wanted to tax New Yorkers, New York City, 5% tax just because you have money. Okay. But now Bernie Sanders, the great Bernie Sanders, who's never come up with any plan that has helped anybody in their lives, teaming up with Ro Khanna, who sometimes does the right thing, to propose a 5% annual wealth tax on the nation's billionaires that would raise an estimated $4.4 trillion over the next decade to help working families cope with the higher living costs. Now, this is interesting to me. It really is, because one of the things that will happen with these billionaires, they'll just take their assets overseas. So when California gets tyrannical, or New York gets tyrannical with these taxation laws, what do? They go to a different state. Or they buy real estate in other states and they put their money there. That way, New York State can't touch it. Same old plan. So in the United States, it's no different. The cost of anything goes up. Cost to produce, cost to keep your money there or invest. What do? They go elsewhere. They outsource. They bring their companies overseas. They make more money that way. They still collect the profits, though. This is what we're seeing. And the same thing will happen to the 938 billionaires inside the United States who collectively own $8.2 trillion. Same thing. They'll just go out. They'll just put their money in foreign investments. Tie it down that way. That's the way it'll be. And, Bernie Sanders thinks he's so smart. The only answer they ever have to anything is to raise taxes. That's it. They have no other plan. What is that $4.4 trillion going to do? Other than nothing for us. That's what I want to... What is it going to do? It says that the legislation would redistribute that wealth by providing $3,000 in direct payments in its first year of enactment to every person in a household earning less than $150,000 in annual income. And so why is it that we need to be sent money? Why don't you just let us keep our own money? Why don't you just get rid of the federal income tax, Bernie? Why don't you do that? But it's not good enough for Bernie. Bernie doesn't want people that have more money than him. Right? He's just a millionaire. That's what he says, at least. So anyways, he goes on to say, we can no longer tolerate a corrupt tax code that enables billionaires to pay a lower tax rate than the average worker. Well, hey, genius, you set up the tax codes in this country. You idiot. You've been there since 1990. Why don't you set up the different tax structure? Why don't you tell your friend Elizabeth Warhead, who writes these loopholes in for these very uber wealthy people, to get rid of them so they can pay their fair share? This is ridiculous in many fronts, I think at least. And again, I'm not saying that people shouldn't pay their taxes. But at the same time, you're just going to put this tax out there to put this tax out there? Well, again, these people are just going to leave. Get rid of the federal income tax. Initiate the tariffs that President Trump wants. That's fine. And collect money that way for the federal government. That's the way it should be. Stop taxing wages. That's it. That's all there is to it. But for Bernie Sanders, who's been there since the Stone Age, he's almost been there as long as Nancy Pelosi, to come out and all of a sudden act like this is the end-all, be-all, this is the right step to just say we're going to do this with taxation, and it won't have any ramifications. They'll just take their money and put it elsewhere. Any sane person would. We see this, again, you see it in various states that want to do this. In various states that want to do this, people leave those states, or they put their money someplace else and live there part-time. They can do that. They can afford it. That's what you're seeing. And that's why you're seeing out of California right now. The plain blueprint for this is California. Gavin Newsom's Democrats in Sacramento want to put a wealth tax on people. What was the end response for that? People are leaving now. People are getting the hell out of Silicon Valley. They're getting out of the state. They're taking their money, they're taking their business, and they're going elsewhere. And now, as a result of that, it's estimated California is going to lose $1 trillion in GDP. This is all because of the stupidity about all this. This is what it comes down to. People like Gavin Newsom, they have no idea what the hell they're doing. Now, he's opposed this, of course, but the effects are still there. People are just leaving, and they're leaving fast. So no shock there from Bernie Sanders. No substance, doesn't do anything to benefit anybody else, just taxes people to death and hopes it works. By the way, have we reached any type of benefit from this taxation we're seeing right now? All of our money goes to foreign wars. When you think about it, our money just goes to wars. It doesn't go back to rebuilding our infrastructure or anything like that. Well, we always have money to go to war, but we never have any money to fix society. Oh, we'll give you $3,000. Well, hey, $3,000 in a household isn't going to be that much. Why don't you just cut taxation for people under $50,000? Why don't you do that? Then you'd see some change in this country. You'd see some change really quick. And by the way, if you're going to print out money, why don't you just print out more money, Bernie? Why give just $3,000? Why not give it $30,000? Why not do that? We need to cut the taxes, folks. That's what it comes down to. That's the way you grow a country. That's the way a country becomes more robust and what have you. But, always just saying you're going to tax people more, it never leads to anything positive. Never does. It just doesn't work. All right, let's talk about this article I have for us in the Federalist now. Got about 10 minutes remaining in today's show. It says, robust Homeland Security must be funded, not shut down. So we're seeing the talks with people like Kristi Noem speaking to Congress right now about DHS funding. We now know that we have, 3 weeks now? We have no funding for DHS. And people are not getting paid, and this is what the Democrats want. And that will continue on once they take back the House this November. But right now we're seeing this partisan game now with the DHS, especially with the funding. And it's profound disservice to all Americans, really, as it could really potentially embolden our adversaries. What does that mean? Well, DHS, for example, everyone just assumes that it just works with ICE. That's one of the aspects of it. But the department's core mission is to protect all Americans from things like terrorism, cyber attacks, any other threats to public safety. We've got Border Patrol security, national security. All these things are very big issues for DHS, and they closely monitor all these things. It's a very important key to our national security that really can't be understated when you look at it. But the American people deserve a DHS that is strengthened by recent resources and increases, and that's why Trump allocated so much money for them. But we've got to think about, especially with what took place in Mexico recently with the killing of El Mencho. We saw that, and we saw chaos going all throughout Mexico. Well, do we want that to spill over the southern border into the United States? We need to have a strong border. We need to have a strong presence on our border. And this just puts all of that at risk. That's what we're seeing right now. So when the Democrats say they want to shut down spending for DHS, what do they really mean about that? They mean they don't want to secure our southern border. They don't care about our sovereignty or our national security. How could you? Doesn't make any sense. And especially with the way the world is today, with the terrorism the way it is today, it's very important that we do secure that southern border. Because if we don't, we risk people coming across that want to do us ill will and harm. We shouldn't be having that. So the DHS needs support, not political interference, which is what the Democrats want. This is how they want to destroy the country from within. So not only is it the illegal aliens they want to come in, but they want people to actually be violent, because what does that mean? It means more laws, right? That's what it comes down to. More laws against the American people. More laws against your rights. That's what they want. So we got to understand, to defend the homeland, we have to constantly remember a simple theme. Most homeland security threats come from abroad, not inside the United States. The sooner we identify them, the more effective our deterrence is. So rather than slash the funding, we should be increasing the funding. That's what it comes down to. Now, of course, they use what took place with ICE recently in places like Minneapolis, for example, as a reason to cut funding for DHS. But this is what they want. They want a porous border. They want things to cross over into the country, particularly humans, which, again, we're still seeing that take place. Again, we're still seeing the flow of drugs in the country, too. It hasn't totally shut down. Although the numbers have decreased significantly, it's still happening. And God forbid one of these people from, I don't know, the Guadalajara cartel, the new generation coming to this country, they know that we put the intelligence forth to find that guy. Could they come in and seek retribution inside the country? Can their factions inside the country carry out that retribution? Only time would tell. But that is a reality, because, again, we do not secure our southern border. And what I would like to see is that border actually sealed shut, as in a physical barrier that's very difficult to pass through. That's what I would like to see. But we're not seeing. We're seeing 77 miles built in a year. Come on. It's I think it's 1,953 mile southern border we have with Mexico. I'd like to see all of those miles with a very strong, secure border that cannot be penetrated. Can't go over it, can't get through it. I want to see that. That's what we want to see. And we can get the money for it. Hey, we have the money for these wars, don't we? Instead of rebuilding those military bases abroad where they don't want us, clearly they don't want us. I mean, we even see people protesting at some of these military bases now, like in Pakistan. I'm sorry, that was an embassy in Pakistan, but you get my picture. Let's bring some of that money home and build a southern border wall. Why not? And a northern border wall, for that matter. And putting a stronger Coast Guard, so people can't just come in from south of the border, sail a boat up and just get on the boat and run to the United States. How many times do we see that in San Diego, Miami, you name it? Let's stop this. We need to see, that shouldn't happen either, by the way. So I would like to see that, obviously, increase, and I think you would too. It's all about public safety, national security, and the risk that could result from that. We've seen it happen time and time again. And by the way, let me just reflect on this article I have for you in the Washington Times really quickly. We've got to understand something. The issues with DHS are one thing. And it's another thing when people come in the country illegally, and they are allowed because of a corrupt court system to stay in the country. What am I talking about? How about the Board of Immigration Appeals told immigration judges in a ruling on Friday that they are no longer allowed to shunt cases onto their inactive dockets on the chance that migrants might have the same path to legal status in the future. What is taking place here? Well, what's taking place? Let me just tell you this. The Justice Department has quietly taken steps now to shut down what they call administrative amnesty. And in this process, they allow illegal aliens to remain inside the United States without ever facing court-ordered deportations. So what the experts are saying is that the decision can now apply to hundreds of thousands of cases. But what's more is that this issue of administrative closure. This is when an immigration judge faces a deportation case but doesn't rule on the issue by either granting benefits or ordering the deportation. Instead, what they do is they call it an inactive knockout. So what that means is these people are essentially referred to as gotaways, right? Or illegal aliens that, evaded capture by Border Patrol and they managed to disappear into the country. So these people don't even show up to these cases and they're not given an update on their status, so they remain inside the country. So the use of this administrative closure has surged in recent years, leaving a massive pool of illegal aliens whom ICE cannot reach. Isn't that nice? So they stay inside the country. So in other words, they're just fueling and aiding and abetting illegal aliens stay in the country. That's what it comes down to. Shouldn't be a shock for many people. But this is what we're seeing out of our court system. It's got to be totally reformed, by the way. Look at this. It says the Board of Immigration Appeals rules labeling administration closure as a type of amnesty and order judges to curtail its use. Absolutely it is. Instead of actually ruling on the case, should you be deported, should you be granted a visa, you're just being allowed to stay in the country illegally. Nothing's being done about it. And again, the system's all backlogged too. They've got a case here talking about a woman brought in during the Obama administration for a deportation case. 3 years later, it's asked to be dropped through this administrative closure. And then 8 years later, she's still trying to get a petition to get some type of visa. Doesn't happen. I mean, it's sickening how the way this immigration process works here in the country. But, people need to be brought to, obviously, the courts, first and foremost. That should be happening. And then, if they're here illegally, they should be deported. Just because you got in the country doesn't mean you got to stay in the country. And that's what I wanted to illustrate to you in that case. Oh, by the way, we got about a minute or so remaining. I just want to shine in on this article, too, from the U.S. Sun. And it's about this car that was created for, a video game, if you will. And one of the tech giants has kind of unveiled this 217 mile per hour all-electric hypercar of the future using a sofa for the cockpit. Now, again, I read this to you for only one purpose, of course, and that's just that China has a vision. And they're not even producing this car. It doesn't exist. But it's, again, for the stimulation of this game, for example. So what we have to understand with all this is that while we're going to war, we're spending money on wars, China is actually outstretching their imagination. They're thinking about creating. They're thinking about creating a new car that can reach such feats, for example. And instead, what are we doing at the same time? We're not doing anything. We're not. We're not building anything brand new. The only thing we're doing is funding more wars. So even though this car may never come to actual production, it's an idea. It's a concept that they can build and they can work on. So why do I say this to you? Because we need to get back in that arena. We need to get back into the entrepreneurship. We need to get back into producing and innovating and creating things that people want, things that can create good paying jobs in this country. Folks, thanks again for being here today. I appreciate you so much. Hope you learned something from today's show. Hope you'll share with others. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow for more groundbreaking news on the next Mark Andre Show. Till then, be good, stay busy. God bless each and every one of you.